For the longest time, I used to intentionally talk to right wing folks. And I understand how you can get caught up on something and not realize how problematic it actually is because your bubble and your worldview is actually more small. Or some people are just extremely afraid and protective, and they lean towards more of we need to go back to what we're familiar with and bubble up and wall up. And I've always felt the need that those who are able to have discussions with people should try to keep having discussions with people. But I also understand that there's like a burden for people who feel like they are straight up under attack, that they don't want to deal with it anymore. And frankly, I completely get that too. So I always think, like, for those who are able to engage right-wing folks, I think they should. But I also think that people have to care for their own mental health and their own well-being. That's super important as well. If somebody comments, I don't know if I'll see it immediately, by the way, just because I don't usually stream this way. So we'll see how well that goes. But so I do forgive me if somebody says something and I somehow miss it. I think I'll see it, but I'm not sure because I'm on my phone right now. So I don't think I ever expected this to really happen, like where I feel like democracy's under attack. Hi, Charla. Thank you. And I don't think I expected this to be in my lifetime. I mean, I really, really didn't. But I'm very, very worried and concerned, and incompetent people are being placed in places of power. And another creator said it really well. He said that the reason why dictators intentionally pick incompetent people in important positions is because those incompetent people are complete loyalists to him, but also because they're incompetent, they were reliant on him. And so as soon as there's a shakeup in leadership, they are going to crumble, right? So they are loyal to him in part because that's what keeps them afloat. And that's pretty interesting insight. I didn't really think about it that way, but yeah, it is sort of this interesting thing. Plus, I'm sure there's financial kickback and gain, and who knows. A friend of mine was like, the world is really ran by like 300 people, like 300 billionaires and really, really powerful people that we just don't know about. And they're playing a game that we just aren't invited to play, And that's, I think that's only true because we let it be true in the world. But I don't know. I've been asking myself a lot of weird questions, like philosophical questions, even like, does all power corrupt? As soon as you are in a powerful position, are you just immediately corrupt? Like, one would have to wonder, does all power corrupt? I don't know. Sometimes I wonder because I can't think of a president that wasn't a problematic person. Kennedy was problematic, like he did a lot of good things, but he was not a good person per se. But you could respect him as a president. He was still functional as a president, Hi, Reese's life. And so, I don't know. Hi, Purple. Good to see you. So right now, California is, we're going to gerrymander. And I know that a lot of my centrist friends and right-wing friends are very worried and feel disenfranchised and are really upset at the governor and at liberals in California that are like, yeah, we're going to gerrymander the fuck out of California. But you have to remember that California for years, as we have played by the rules and we have played very nice and kindly with people, and we have given right-wingers the representation in their areas, where it's Orange County or Visalia, California, or Fresno, California, or Imperial Valley. They've gotten like tons of representation in the past. But this time California's going to be gerrymandered, and I'm for it. And the reason why I'm for it, normally I wouldn't be, but the reason why I'm for it is because at this point, I don't know. I think that Democrats think they're playing pickleball, and Republicans are playing Risk, but with real things, like. And so, like, I think that at this point, with Greg Abbott doing multiple things that are just horrific, one of which, and there's so many to point to Greg Abbott in Texas as being very fucked up. But Greg Abbott, he's intentionally gerrymandered the state, and they didn't put it up to a vote. They just did it because in their ability, they can just do it. At least California is putting it up for a vote, but Greg Abbott and that group, they didn't. They just did it. So they made these really bizarre lines in Texas, and you can look at the map and stuff, and they gerrymandered pretty much anybody that's a minority out of the disenfranchised. And so people are like, I want my Rep. Julie or Jasmine Crockett to represent me. And now they're gerrymandered out of their positions. And people in Dallas and Austin are pretty upset. Hi, Fabio. Good to see you. Great to see you. So Newsom, thank God, he's not perfect. He's a corporatist. I don't really want him as president because he's a corporatist Democrat, and he is in billionaires' pockets, definitely. But he's one of the few that have the nerve to stand up against Trump. And somebody needs to. And so because Democrats have been so fussy and worried about playing by the rules, we got mowed over. Even when Obama was in office, we were held hostage by Mitch McConnell and he basically was part of the reason why we ended up with a Republican in the SCOTUS, because he was making up this nonsense about how we couldn't install a judge this late in the presidency or something like that. And Democrats were like, yeah, we'll play by the rules, rules that don't exist. And it just has been constantly, slapping us in the face. And when the big, beautiful bill happened, the thought process with a lot of the Democrats that were like, fine, just pass it, was not just fear of the government shutting down like it is right now, but fear that while the government shut down, Trump is going to do whatever he wants as a dictator. And that could look like all sorts of things. Hey, Congress is closed till September, kind of thing. And they were worried. Well, now that it's this late in the year, they're just like, well, now we're going to stand up and do something, which seems a little bit late. But it has been interesting to see people that are normally very idiotic suddenly speak up and be like, I'm worried about the healthcare thing. So I hate MTG, but MTG is now starting to rock the boat a little bit on the healthcare thing, going, people's rates are going to double and triple if we don't do something. And I have yet to see another Republican have another plan for healthcare. And she's right. They keep saying we will have something or it's in the works. They never have a plan for healthcare. The plan for healthcare for Republicans is that you die. If you can't afford to play the game, you die. Like, that's their plan. I mean, like, come on. Like I don't see anything else in their plan other than that. And so they have yet to come up with any solutions or reinsurances or anything except for untethered capitalism and insurance companies killing people, So no solutions whatsoever. And so MTG has been rocking the boat on the healthcare thing. Thank God. Because it's one of the worst things in the bill. And then the other people, Rand Paul, say what you want of him. Sometimes he says lunacy. During COVID, I think he was speaking lunacy. But Rand Paul, I think, is one of the few that actually care about his I think he actually cares about his constituents, and he did care about the welfare stuff, and he does care about the Medicare stuff. He comes from a not very wealthy state, and so he's concerned. So he has some courage to be breaking from the Trump MAGA cult. But so many people are just voting along the lines, and they will not cross over. And it's like, what do you people have on you guys where you just vote in unison no matter what? Even if it's going to undermine Congress, the seat that you hold, you'll vote against your own interests. It's very, very weird. Tim Walz for president. I like Tim Walz. I don't know if he could win for president. I think he'd be an excellent vice president, though. Yeah, they will never back a candidate who isn't corporate. I know. Someone said it kind of interesting enough. They said that Republicans are for oligarchs right now, which is, I think, substantially worse, and Democrats are for corporatists. And that might be a fair criticism. The DNC always gives us a corporatist and says, you have to have him, not Bernie, him, and we're like, oh, great. But yeah, I'm concerned. I'm really concerned about healthcare. I would not be able to afford a double or triple to my healthcare. There's no way. There's no way I could afford that. And I think a lot of people can't afford that. And people would just immediately drop off and be uninsured. And then what? Declare bankruptcy if something horrific happens, maybe even get refused from ERs. If they reverse this stuff about Ronald Reagan, where an ER has to at least stabilize you when you come in, no matter what your nationality is or anything like that. If they reverse that, I think one of the things that will happen is that they won't have to stabilize anybody. So prove your citizenship or don't get stabilized. I mean, what kind of world are we in? What's happening in Portland right now, I'm actually really proud of Portland. I think Portland has problems with, how they address drugs and homelessness sometimes, but so do we in San Diego. But I am very proud of Portland. I like their energy, that they are protesting, but they are doing it in the most hilarious way. So everybody's on the left's pretty aware that, Trump is just looking for an excuse to declare martial law. And so what do you do with that? Well, if you get more irate and you start, getting physical and doing whatever, destruction of property or whatever, then yeah, he's going to declare martial law. And then when he does that, all bets are off, right? He could sit on the presidency for a long time. He could do a lot of things. So Portland with the blow up frogs has been really hilarious. I mean, really, really hilarious. I think it's actually a brilliant move. Like, how amazing is it to have Stephen Miller yelling about Antifa and these are organized terrorists and there's all these people that are like in danger and there's fires everywhere and it's just a war zone and people are street fighting, and then you have these blow up frogs just dancing around. I mean, that's pretty funny. I think that's really brilliant, actually.
I just saw a video of all the police and ICE backing up because they were afraid of a big inflatable blue bunny.
Because they're afraid of the blue bunny, so they backed up. I mean, it is a bunny. Fair enough. But yeah, I love... Are they the frogs that turn gay? Probably, because they're in Portland. But even in my neighbor groups, a lot of us are voting for 450 to rewire and to try to fight back on the seat steals. And I miss the days where we had presidents that didn't intentionally try to declare war on the American people. That whole speech in front of the generals where he says we need to fight the enemy within and stuff like that, while he's making deals with Qatar gives him this expensive airplane. He, in turn, is building a resort in Qatar. Qatar is going to have a facility in Idaho from the Air Force facility and moved their planes here. Qatar has long been known to have fund terrorists and stuff like that. Like Qatar is like the Middle East version of Switzerland, where they help all the people sort of and financially move things around a lot. They're kind of like that, and they are not a free country. They're not part of the free world. So to have a country that's not part of the free world have some sort of training facility here in the United States, that in itself is a huge conflict of interest. I think that's a big, huge no, and that's really alarming. But hey, maybe Qatar wants to help fight the enemy within, right? Kind of scary. Also, Qatar, speaking of Qatar and how they are messing with the United States, Elon Musk used Qatar to help buy Twitter. When people were looking about how did Elon Musk come up with the funding, and the backing? He has the money, but you know how money's like tied up in investments and things like that. Qatar backed him up. And so Twitter probably wouldn't have gotten bought by Elon Musk had it not been for Qatar. So Qatar's up to shenanigans. And to have them over here, nope. And somehow Trump has got people that are working class punching down on immigrants. These are some immigrants that have been here for 20 years, 30 years, no crimes whatsoever except for crossing the border and living here as a non-citizen, undocumented. But other than that, living their life, they're selling fruit at the fruit stand, or they whatever they're doing, they're contributing to society. They often are paying taxes, and just living a normal life. And we are seeing video after video of ICE arresting people who are not MS-13, are not the gangsters and criminals that they're speaking of, people that are doing due process, people that have been here for years without incident, people whose kids are citizens, but maybe they aren't, and they're willing to separate them as well. The fact that ICE is showing up at school drop-off and pickups to nab parents is disturbing. ICE showing up at churches and churches kicking them out, pretty disturbing. It's just horrific. And there's a video of an ICE agent just pulling out a gun, and they're immediately just bashing this guy's window. And because I'm guessing he's illegal, and I'm guessing that the wife and child aren't. And so they're bashing the window, gonna, pull him out of the car. The first thing the guy does is pull out a gun. Like, cops don't even do that, like, most of the time. Most of the time I guess it depends on the cop, really. But usually if it's just a stop, it starts with a stop, not an immediate escalation. But it's really disturbing, and the bounty hunter thing really disturbs me too, that there's these goons that are like dressed like ICE but are bounty hunters, and so you don't know who is grabbing you and picking you up. Oh, and the other thing is these build the wall people. Build the wall, keep them out, build the wall. I told everybody, I said walls historically keep people inside the United States. That or not just inside places. Like I think about the Berlin Wall, that historically kept the people in, not the Western Germany coming in, but it kept Eastern Germany from leaving, behind the Iron Curtain, right? So build a wall. These build a wall people. You know what you guys did? You know what you guys did to us? You basically gave ICE 100-mile radius all around the country where they can just ignore your constitutional rights. That's how they're getting away with it. There's 100-mile radius around the border, and they're like, we don't have to follow due process. We can just grab you. Thank you. All those people that were just obsessed with, oh my gosh, a Mexican might take my job. You guys did this. And now we have people that are mass police running around that could just grab you and throw you in a van. If you're an American citizen, if you're not an American citizen, they can just grab you and then they'll sort it out later. They don't care. They don't care. And until this gets like overturned, we're going to have a lot of problems. And I'm sure this is going to expand as things get worse. So thank you for the build the wall, build the wall. There's 100-mile radius now where ICE can just bust down your door. Thanks. That's how they're getting away with when show me your warrant, show me your warrant. We don't have to show you a warrant. That's how they're getting away with it, is that executive order, which should be illegal. This all should be illegal. It's just insanity to me. And this is, if you go by the 100-mile radius around the country, this is major cities. You know, this is New York, this is California, you know, Texas, like just tons of places where they can just stop you at random, no good reason at all, and then you can try to refuse to answer their questions, but like you don't know what they're gonna do. They've been just grabbing people off the streets and throwing them in vans at this point. And then what happened in Chicago, there's this Black Hawk helicopter, really. And then they storm the apartment building and they're just like, round up the usual suspects, you know, and people are not even speaking up. And these are the don't tread on me people, the you know, fight tyranny people, from my cold dead hounds people, and they don't care because it's not them. And what it's telling me over and over again is this is about white power. It is about white power. I'm sorry, and I'm horrified. I had no idea how sick our country still is, and I guess I was very, very naive because you know what, I'm white. I have a different lens and experience of the world, and you know, I thought we were getting better, but I guess not. Like, I guess we were far sicker than I thought as a country, and we have major problems. Let's see. During the military parade, Trump was furious that the soldiers were smiling and waving, and he wanted them to be intimidating. Yeah, he wanted to have like a North Korea style march, and instead it was like really weird. It was an anemic march, missing soldiers. But I have to say, like, if you voted for this and you were worried about immigration, watch every single video of them ripping families apart then, and just say, yep, I'm about that. I want to rip families apart. And then these Christian nationalists, you know, oh my God, don't get me started on that. But it's interesting because a lot of Hispanic people are Christians. A lot of Hispanic people are Catholics. A lot of Hispanic people actually vote right wing when they are voting. Like, and so like it's just about racism. It's really straight up that. And I mean, we could like point to how ridiculous it was when he was saying, "Oh, there's Hannibal Lecters being launched over the border and blah blah blah." And that's just ridiculous. But now this is just unhinged, like really unhinged. And what I'm seeing Republicans do and independents do that voted somewhat for this is like, well, of course every bad situation is going to be shown, but none of the good things that has happened is going to be shown. Or you know, maybe there's just more to the story, and that critical thinking, that don't trust the government that you were seeing from Republicans and centrists gets thrown out the window because they trust ICE. I think the Patriot Act was one of the worst things that happened. I think 9/11 was the start of ruining America, because people were willing to exchange their freedom for safety. and just and that paranoia. So then we start going into Big Brother mode, and we start having cameras everywhere, and then now we have cameras everywhere now, and now Homeland Security has a hold of that now, and they have a database, and now they can just snap a picture of you, and because you walked through an airport, they can pull up your data, and that disturbs me. That scares me. Fabio says, this week I had an appointment to figure out the rental agreement and some other stuff on behalf of a friend of mine, Fran, relocate here. Oh, she wants to relocate there? Can't say that Trump was the reason, but it was an accelerant of a process for sure. Yeah, there's a lot of people that are looking to leave, especially if they are an at-risk person. Department of Retribution is in full effect, right? Right? I'm just really, really worried. I'm worried that things are going to go down during this election. They're talking about putting ice all over the place during the election. And if they have that 100-mile radius, thing, they can impede anybody. They can be suspect of anybody and just without due process at all, just grab you and put you who knows where for how long, who knows how long. And even the amount of people that were okay with, okay, maybe this guy is getting shipped to El Salvador and is a gangster. Maybe he is. Let's say he is. Let's not assume innocence like the Garcia guy. Let's just assume that there's this one guy, and for sure we know he's a gangster. I'm still against sending a full-on gangster, murderer, anybody to El Salvador to a torture camp. I think torture is always wrong. I'm sorry. I think it's always wrong. And I think people always need due process. And if we do not have due process, we are not America anymore. If you are willing to give up free speech and the freedom of the press and due process, but don't take my guns, which you've been useless with, by the way, then we're not America anymore. Like, we're something else, whatever that is, Magaland, But when I think of what America is, I think of the Constitution. And if you're going to set fire to it or ignore it or make excuses of why some people have due process and other people don't, then there's a problem. There's a big problem. And Fabio, it's interesting. You're talking about a friend, leaving to Italy. And I don't blame them. But at the same time, like, we have other countries saying, I don't want Americans to come here. And I kind of get that too. Scotland has been, there's been some people in Scotland that have been like, hey, let's rescue the LGBTQ people, especially trans people. Let's have them come here and give them asylum, which is pretty kind of Scotland. Ireland's been kind of like, don't overflow us, but if there was a rush of Americans trying to leave, I think if it became more accelerated, I think they'll try to keep people here. And like I said, I think walls are historically proven to keep people inside the country, and like the Iron Curtain. Let's see. Reagan got elected, been trying to get to Canada to annex Minnesota. Canada can annex you. That's a good idea. There you go. Tim Walz can declare war upon Canada, and then Canada will annex Minnesota, and then you guys will be good. Problem solved. California actually really belongs more to Mexico, frankly. But if you want to get technical. Also in the news, I don't know if I'm hearing more about this because I'm in San Diego, but American tourists are getting warnings in typical tourist areas like Mazatlan, Rosarito. they are getting warnings saying that cartel has issued threats to Americans in general. They do not care if you vote right or left. They're not going to sort you out. And so I wouldn't go to Mexico right now. I'm just saying. I wouldn't go right now after the bombing of the boat and stuff like that. And yeah, I would not go over there because if we're going to just randomly declare war on people and let God sort them out as we blow them to smithereens, there's going to be some sort of pushback. So I would not go. But yes, at least here in my city, there's rumors circulating to not go across if you're an American. And I don't know. We'll see how that goes. But typically there's no tensions traveling back and forth. Your average tourist would never have any problems going back and forth. So thank you, Trump, for that. Trump has been betraying the free world right and left. He betrayed Ukraine. He's been needlessly attacking our neighbors to the north. He's been attacking, literally, our neighbors to the south. He has flipped off NATO pretty much. He's been just awful. He's a betrayer of the free world. So if somebody's willing to betray the free world and then invite Qatar over to build a facility over here, I think it's safe to say that this guy is a problem. But yeah. Yeah. Well, Canada's really close for you, for sure. But yes, so I have good news. So a lot of my neighbors and friends are voting yes on 50. So I'm hoping, and we're a fairly purple city here in San Diego, so I'm hoping that there's enough yeses that we can fight back. But we need people to fight back and flip seats. And we really need defectors on certain things. And Rand Paul has been standing true to his beliefs, which sometimes are wonky and sometimes they're all right. And he's standing up for health care, at least for his state. I'll say that about Rand Paul. But I don't know. I was watching another creator and they brought up something that is true. Trump is a wild card that can't completely be controlled. And yeah, he's old and kind of deranged now, but he's still not completely controlled. But if Vance became president, he is completely controlled by Peter Thiel and Elon Musk. And then the Dark Enlightenment is here. Boom. Feudalism. Hi. Yeah. I think if Vance was to run next, I think that him as president might even be scarier because he's under the full control. Like, absolutely. So we'll see. I'm worried that won't even have a fair election. I am concerned about that in 2028. He's looking for any excuse to declare martial law, which is why Portland's so funny on how they're protesting, because it makes Kristi Noem look ridiculous and Stephen Miller look ridiculous when they're like, we're street fighting in Portland and it's a war zone, and you got these little blow up frogs dancing around. It's hilarious. It's actually quite brilliant. Or there was a clown brigade. There's like a little clown brigade that was walking behind ICE. It's like I mean, and then if you want to say, oh, they're violent and scary, and oh my gosh, you look like an idiot, like that you're upset about these people. So, um, you might have seen a video of one of the frogs getting sprayed with pepper spray. You know how they have like a fan and a vent that blows up their blow up suits. And then one of the ICE agents ran out of line and just sprayed a whole bunch of pepper spray on the vent. And I was thinking, oh man, that's gonna be terrible. And the guy in the and the guy in the frog suit was like, I have had spicier food. Like he said it didn't really do much to him. Like, but I don't know. I think it's brilliant to have mockery. Dictators really hate mockery, as you know. Look at Jimmy Kimmel. I think one of the things that's upset me is the 100-mile zone around the border is pretty disturbing, because that's a lot. And that means that at any moment, whole city's constitutional rights can be disrupted because we have a massed army marching around. The other concern is, I think somebody said that ICE is now the 6th most well-funded military type organization in the world. That's kind of disturbing. We can't afford, to feed children at school who are hungry. We can't afford single mothers getting welfare. We can't afford health care. But we can afford this massive massed army to grab a grandma that's been here for 30 years to eject her to Guatemala. It's really messed up. Historically, the jester was the only one who could speak truth to power. That's true. That is true. Because if you get upset at the jester, you look like you're the one that has the problem. You look kind of weak, right? You can't take a joke. Yeah. Yeah, that's true. But yeah, I am worried about the state of things. Now, people that are trying to push back on this Prop 50 in California are like, oh my gosh, it makes you just as bad. I'm sorry, but this just as bad thing isn't going to work for me when we have freaking goose steppers in charge right now. Sorry. Gloves are off now. Don't like it, then don't vote for goose stepper. Like, I don't know what to tell you. But there is a provision where it's not going to stay that way. It'll get revoted on in a couple years or so. Like, it's not going to stay that way. But I understand anybody being upset about power grabs. I'm upset. Like, I strongly feel like if a Democrat does magically get into presidency and we actually do have a real election, which I'm very leery of everything, I would hope that one of the things that they would do is dismantle this imbalance of power that the Heritage Foundation and Trump are assembling, and bring the balance of power back to Supreme Court. The judiciary system needs to be able to tell the president no. And instead, this current judiciary system, at least from the top level, the Supreme Court, has made it so that he's a king that can do no wrong. As long as he says that he's doing something that's illegal in line with the presidency, he's untouchable because he's doing it in line with the presidency. Like, it was one of the worst things that they've done. There's many other worse things, but when that happened, I was like really, really worried. And then I keep thinking to myself, with the way that they're moving the balance of power to the executive branch, and then the way that they're making the president untouchable for any crimes and any accountability, tells me that they do not expect to ever lose their seats. That tells me that they do not think there will be a risk of flipping the election. So one has to wonder why they think that they wouldn't be at a risk for another Obama type person, to get into the presidency. Something there is making them really cocky. Could it be that they know that Trump's going to declare martial law? Could it be that they know that they're just going to arbitrarily throw out a bunch of votes that happen to be blue? Could it be that they'll just decide California doesn't count because some reason? Could it be that, one has to wonder, what are they planning? Because they seem awfully confident that a lefty's not going to come in and say, look at all this power the executive branch has. I'm just going to switch everything, to my liking. So I think they really think that they are not going to lose power. And that concerns me. It's hard to pick the worst thing they've done, right? Yeah, exactly. Or they care about keeping their seats for today and the here and now. Yeah, maybe. Oh, man. So, yeah, I do know a bunch of people that are going to vote for Prop 50, and that California is going to be putting up a big fight. Basically, in response to Texas's nonsense. And if you don't like it, then stop doing the things that you guys are doing. I don't know what to tell you. The other thing is, the amount of centrists that I see that call out left-wingers and stuff like that, but are doing nothing about, the things that Stephen Miller are saying. It's crickets. Stephen Miller's awful. Everything that man says is awful. Everybody that doesn't like him or is against him or slightly left, he calls the T word. They're all Boston T words. That word is always a red flag for me, because the T word is another excuse to bypass due process. So if you say, oh, well, so-and-so's a T word, then they can hold you for indefinitely. Thank you, Homeland Security. Thank you, Patriot Act, and all the other nonsense. I literally have always thought Homeland Security is the worst department ever and should never have existed. The CIA is one thing, the FBI is another, but then Homeland Security rolled in, and I was like, one day this is going to be used against us. And then the Snowden thing happened, and people were like, are we really being surveillance like this? And then it just sort of like a boiling frog, and now we're here. Now we've got a secret police here that doesn't need a warrant, that doesn't need to follow due process. And then we have a ranting crazy man, Stephen Miller, who's calling everybody the T word that he doesn't like. And then now they're trying to say that anti, is a whole T organization, and that they're just as dangerous as Hamas and stuff like that. And then this whole narrative of when Kirk was patated, that they were right out of the bat, the instant it happened, they were tweeting Civil War stuff, and they were tweeting about, just tons of commentators and politicians, and they were tweeting things that were, I bet it is a trans person, and it just so happens that magically they want to take away the Second Amendment right, or Second Amendment right, the right to bear arms away from trans people. In a yippee-ki-yay, take it from my cold, dead hands country, that any slight gun control, they all flip out. And they want to take away a certain people group's guns away. That tells me something that we should be worried. And it will start with that group, because they think nobody cares about them. And then they'll move to the other group. Then it'll be the rest of the LGBTQ. They'll move to that group. and then they'll move to anybody that's left, and it's just going to be like a snake swallowing a capybara whole, like it's gonna be really bad. So just, oh, it's just a little bit. Oh, it's just that person. It doesn't affect me. It's that person. Well, they're just a small minority. Oh, nope. Okay, they took more. They took more. They took more. They took more. Um, there's even like there's even been leaked emails going back and forth with Heritage and Trump and other people where they were talking about the problem of the Second Amendment and left wingers. What do we do about them? So they want the Second Amendment for themselves, but not other people, which is really disturbing too. Look, I don't hate America. Like this nonsense of like anybody is left that hates America. I don't hate America. I think America's done some great things, and I think America's done some awful things. And I think we should hate the right things where we've messed up and do better. And I think that we should love the good things that we do get right. I think the Constitution overall is something that we did get right. I think we can continue to build upon it and even improve it. But yeah, like somebody made a suggestion that in the Constitution we need to have like a no kings clause, that we cannot allocate all power ever to like the executive branch. And that would be, I always thought that was inferred in the Constitution, but as you can see, people are nuts. So, hey, Brian G. Thought that was kind of the whole purpose of the Constitution, really. No kings. Even this. So Moses Mikey, I call him Moses Mikey because the Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson from Louisiana, he said that, as he was wrestling with the calling of being Speaker of the House, he's like, I don't know if I can do it. And then he was reminded of Moses and how Moses felt like he couldn't speak. And Moses had his brother Aaron speak for him a lot of times, it says in the Bible, I guess. And so he's like Moses, and he's so now I call him Moses Mikey. So Moses Mikey Johnson is saying that the No Kings protest is all the people that hate of America. And it's so funny because I know so many people that will participate in that absolutely love America. They're just left, or they're centrist and against this regime. But they don't hate America, and it's just, they're trying to paint everybody as this wild, chaotic, anti-American group of people. And the No Kings protest is large. It's not that. It's people that actually want the Constitution to be preserved, that want democracy to be preserved. That's what that's about. Yeah, that Moses might have had a stutter or something. Maybe. Very possible. I think there should be a cap on personal wealth. Yeah. I don't know how we're going to do that in the world because it is a worldwide issue. It's just a worse issue in America. America's the most wild about it because we have the most billionaires. But I think that how much is too much? Well, I think it's too much wealth if your wealth is worth more than a whole state's voting rights. What's more powerful? No, seriously, I was thinking about this. What is more powerful? Elon's influence in the political game and maybe 4 of the red states. Like, which one's more powerful? I would say Elon's more powerful. The fact that somebody can have so much wealth that they can negate votes, essentially, is disturbing. That much power that you, with a single tweet, he scared Republicans into voting a certain way on the big, beautiful bill. That's too much power, right? And he's one of the biggest examples because he's going to be a trillionaire soon, but there's others too. And until America says that we are not going to allow corporations and super PACs influence our politicians. We were going to have massive corruption always. So this notion when Trump said he was going to drain the swamp, he just meant he was going to deregulate and let companies go wild and give us cancer again, and put in absolute buffoons and loyalists. That was his draining the swamp, and he put us in a worse situation. Now I feel like we're in a worse situation worldwide. We are now not respected at all. Like we were losing respect, obviously, but now we're absolutely not respected as a country. He's been an enemy to the free world and not an ally to the free world. And so I'm just really concerned. Let me see. If you, your kids, and their kids can't spend it, how? Yeah, that's more than enough, exactly. Well, and the other thing is the Make America Great Again people. Like I always say, like, great for who? Like that. I've said it to my own family, like that are right wing. Great for who? Was it great for this person? Was it great for this people group? Was it great for this person? The answer is no. But it was great for some people. And they would always be white people. But they also don't talk about why things were quote unquote great. So you were talking to the 1940s through the 70s, probably in that sweet bracket. What is great about it? Well, the greatness about it is that you're out of the Great Depression and you're out of the Gilded Age. And so people are like, well, why was there such a strong middle class built? That's the zone where middle class was like seriously built. And the American dream was not this nonsense to become a billionaire, or a talk show host that somehow struck it rich like Oprah Winfrey, no, the American dream was to live freely and to raise a family and to be all right and to be secure. It wasn't to be like ultimately wealthy. And this nonsense when they show like this person is a random entrepreneur and then they ended up as a billionaire and that's the American dream. That is not the American dream. The American dream was stability and kind of that middle class kind of thing is what most people wanted. And then it got shot to hell. And now we have BlackRock and banks and private investment groups buying up property. And now young families can't have houses, but don't worry, they can Airbnb it because it's owned by some private investment group now, They're outbidding normal people. And they go, oh, we're in a housing crisis. How did that happen? Because you made it happen. like that's why. Oh, I just... And California has not done a damn thing about that. Newsom, mark my words with Newsom, he's not the Messiah. He's just better than Trump. But he has done a damn nothing to solve the problem with housing here. He's letting us get just oppressed by housing costs here. And the unwillingness to reel in banks and investment groups, and it's just, we're gonna just stay in this problem. And maybe that's what they want. Maybe eventually they want us all to work at a Tesla factory, and that's where we live too. And maybe they'll have suicide nets in case we hurl each other out of the window because there was some factory in China that was like that, where they put suicide nets up because the factory workers would get so depressed because they worked and lived there. There's people that actually think that would be a great idea. Let me see here. I think it was Peter Thiel that proposed freedom cities, and Elon Musk, that corporation-owned cities could happen again. We tried that with coal workers and coal miners, and it went very, very bad. The only reason wealth was originally excused by politicians was to put them above the bribery and the greed. Oh, yeah, what an excuse, right? Right. So, I don't know. Untethered capitalism is just evil. But now, if you speak against capitalism, you can be put on the T word list on that executive order. Being against capitalism in any way could put you in the T word list, which is really stupid. Like, being anti-Christian could put you on the T word list. Look, I love Jesus. I think Jesus is great. I will support people's religious rights to live whatever the life that they want, as long as they're not harming other people. You want to live very conservatively, but don't mess with other people, kind of thing. But if you can't criticize religion, then you don't have free speech. And there's plenty to criticize in Christianity. And then what flavor of Christianity, really? Which flavor? Which flavor do you want to critique? Heritage Foundation, because I pay attention to them. I've watched a lot of their stuff. Their big plan down the road is to declare who and who isn't Christian. And so their big plan is to strip the property, the buildings, and the tax code away from progressive churches. So an example of a progressive church would be Methodists, who preach the social gospel that gets sneered at by people like the Heritage Foundation. Methodists were very involved in the establishment of welfare and pushed for it. Quakers would be a problem for them. Quakers are very anti-war, anti-guns, accepting of all people. Quakers, Methodists, Episcopalians. Episcopalians tend to be focused on helping the poor and are very liberal and accepting of all people, and even have gay clergy. They want to strip them all of religious rights and saying, oh, well, you're not real Christians because you don't follow what we follow. So that's down the line in the pipeline, because they talk about it. And so I do not want them to have power. I also have concerns with Turning Point as well. Turning Point is now more powerful than the NRA. And when Kurt got patated, I'm going to sound really crazy, but it's to Heritage benefit. It's to Heritage Foundation's benefit that he's not there. Because say what you want about Kurt being racist, that's true. He did care about a democracy that was actually real. I really think he cared about a democracy that was actually real. And that would be very problematic for Heritage Foundation that really wants a theocracy. So I'm just saying that it really benefited Heritage Foundation getting rid of Kirk than anybody. And I just want to point that out. I don't think people realize that. Yeah, Anglicans as well. Anglicans and Episcopalians are really highly related. The Unitarians are going to get targeted. The Universal Church of Christ is going to get targeted. Groups like Shane Claiborne's group, that's just sort of like hippie Jesus movements, they'll get targeted. So yeah, it's not good. If you can't criticize politicians, you don't have free speech, as you understand your Constitution. Exactly. We should be able to criticize systems. We should be able to criticize faith and philosophy. We should be able to criticize politicians, people in charge. And if we can't do these things, then we are not a free country. Now, inciting violence, there's an excuse for that. I'm just going to prefix this. When progressives say words are violence, I disagree. But I will say that words can incite violence. So an example, I think Fiona and I were discussing this once, was an example is when People give speeches and they incite a crowd, and then that crowd it wants to burn down a hotel that has immigrants in it, which really did happen in the UK, where they were like, let's burn down this hotel because they have undocumented immigrants in it. I think if you can trace the words of inciting that violence, to the person, then that's a problem. That's a problem. But that's different, and that's very, very specific. And it was very, 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 very pointed. So you have to really prove that it's a pointed incitement. And frankly, everything that comes out of Stephen Miller's mouth is an incitement for violence. I'm just saying. So I don't know what the answer is, except that California is punching back, and I'm proud of my state for doing that. I hope that people make the right decision at the voting booth. I know that people are going tut-tut at me. Tut-tut. I've been tut-tutted by people going, how would you like it if it was you? And it's like, well, until you get rid of these goose steppers, which you're unwilling to speak against, I'm going to have to do what I have to do. I don't know what to tell you. So, I think it's time for people to decide if they care about the Constitution or not, if they care about freedom or not, if they care about democracy or not. Do they trust a king to lead? Do they trust a feudal system? Do they want a feudal system? Do we want lords in charge of everything? Our great billionaires. Everybody that was sitting beside Trump when he was, I want to say sworn in, but I can't think of the word. Inauguration. Yeah, the inauguration. He intentionally has all these billionaires sitting there in prominence, kind of as a way of a flex to say, who has the real power. You know who has the real power here. Ta-da, unmasked. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Stephen Miller, there's several videos going out about this. Stephen Miller, live on CNN, said that the president had plenary authority and then stopped like a deer in the headlights and went, shit, I shouldn't have said that kind of thing. Like, he just completely stopped, and then CNN tried to excuse it, like, oh, we're having technical difficulties. Stephen, are you there? Stephen, are you there? And he's like, and then they refilm it where he doesn't have it, or they cut it, one of the two. I think they cut it, where he doesn't say plenary authority. He misspoke, but did he really? Plenary. Yeah, plenary authority. Plenary. That's what Stephen Miller said. Which is like untethered power, I guess. I would say, but he like deer in the headlight, like went, oh, I shouldn't have said that. Which was very strange. But yeah, Moses Mikey is saying that the No Kings protest is I Hate America protest, and it's gonna be full of Antifa and T words and all this stuff. And I'm like, the No Kings protest here had a lot of old people in it. I'm just saying. A lot of ex-veterans and stuff like that too. Plenary. It's a word that's not in my normal vernacular. Like, I was like, plenary, I had to look it up. I think he slipped. I think he did a Freudian slip where, that's what he really believes, and it slipped out. I could, snip so much of Stephen Miller. And if you put him side by side with somebody in Nazi Germany, he's indistinguishable. He's the same, which is really weird. And people are like, oh, I'm just going to ignore that part. I'm not going to notice that. It has mostly been benign definitions, but it was the way he used it in the context that made it such a foot and mouth moment. Well, anyway, the bear has been awoken. The California grizzly has been awoken, and I really hope we all do the right thing and we fight back with Texas. Also, speaking of unhinged things in Texas, you know, Texas did the school voucher program, which is going to move funds and be basically a wealth distribution to people that are wealthy or families that are already using private schools. They're going to grab a bunch of money out of that. And then public schools are going to get poorer. And then also, food programs are gone. Also, Texas, doesn't want you to be able to leave Texas to have an abortion. That's a whole thing too. And it's had a lot of Texas has removed data on their government site on things like infant mortality and like deaths of women in childbirth. They just removed the data so you don't know, so you don't see whatever's going on. It reminds me of when Trump said, there's a bunch of people dying of COVID. Well, it wouldn't look so bad if we stopped reporting it. like he's against reporting poor numbers, and as long as they're not reported, they don't exist, right? So it's not happening, right? Oh my gosh. Oh, so Greg Abbott was so excited about the idea of Chicago being invaded by the National Guard, per Trump's doing, that Greg Abbott volunteered the Texas National Guard to invade Chicago, Illinois. And then Trump also was forcing the California National Guard. He said, "Oh, I'm federalizing. I'm trying to go around you guys and make them go to Oregon." And it's like, well, that's blue on blue violence right there. but like Texas being so gung ho, don't mess with Texas, wanting to jump into another state to mess with them is something else. Like, that is just wow. Fuck Texas. Fuck you, Texas. And people from Texas that I used to argue with in Union Rock, fuck you too. Like, I'm so mad at Texas. I'm so mad. Good to see you, Simos. Great to see you. Great to see you. Great to see you. Anyway, I was kind of rambling and meandering through because it's just all overload. It's hard to stay focused on a topic. It's hard to, say this is the problem that needs to be fixed. It's hard to do a lot of things right now because you're just so flooded. Like right now, the SCOTUS is looking at knocking down gay marriage. They will totally knock down gay marriage. I have no doubt about it. And so now on TikTok and other places, people have like 8 or 9 documents that if you are gay and married, and if they bust up that ability to be married and suddenly retroactively you're not anymore, that there's about 8 or 9 documents that you might need in order for you to have the same rights as a married individual. So like whether it's shared property or what happens, if one of the parents dies and there's a kid, all these things you're going to have to chase down and figure out because the evangelical right wants to define what marriage is for everybody. And they apparently think that their ideas are not strong enough to be challenged by anybody with opposite ideas. So they're just going to get rid of everything. Yeah, Texas is turning purple in like Dallas and Austin and stuff like that. But like they know it and they're freaking out. So they just gerrymandered the F out of it. So that way that they're not purple. Right. I don't know. We'll see. But oh, and the DEI nonsense. I could go on and on about that. Like, someone, a black creator was saying, don't talk to me about DEI when you have, all these people that are accused of sexual assault, like Pete Hegseth, Trump. Oh, there was more. We had like a whole list of them, and like they're all like I can't think of this lady's name because I hate her. I just like looked at her, McMillan, the one that is in charge of education, who's absolutely an idiot. But she's a billionaire, and she's part of that human trafficking wrestling scandal and stuff like that. Like, we just have a bunch of pedophiles and sexual deviants running the country, trying to tell other people who they can and cannot marry. I mean, wrap your head around that, you know. Mormons, yeah. But anyway, I'm definitely worried about things, but I take hope. California's punching back, so that's good. Yes, yes, it's a whole thing. And the ring boys, too, like, were molested. Yeah, it's like a big scandal. It's been years now, and I'm now just convinced like we're just ran by a bunch of pedophiles. Like, the Epstein file thing shows me. I guess we have a lot of pedophiles in charge, which is horrific. Um, but you know, years ago, there were these people, and we called them nutsos, and they were talking about QAnon and weird stuff. But even before that was Pizzagate, and that there were these cults and high places that were sacrificing babies and things like that. And we were like, you guys are ridiculous. But if you had told me back then that this Epstein Island thing was going on, I would still say you guys are ridiculous. Except there may be wrong on a lot of their things, and maybe it was like a CIA psyop to direct you somewhere else and be like, oh, all conspiracy theories are ridiculous. But Epstein Island thing just blows my mind. I guess I was very naive about a lot of things. And so I don't know. Oh God, a bad one. Like, they're not all bad. Jeez. Also, I'm just gonna say it. Erica Kirk creeps me out, and it's more of not just like you could be like stiff upper lip, about like losing your husband and everything. It's not that creeps me out. It's the rise to power for her and the connection she has with Trump prior to this, and like beauty pageants and things like that in Arizona, I think it was. She's she's weird. I'm just saying, she's weird. I'm gonna just be crazy and say that I think that the Kirk thing's an inside job. I'll just say it. That's what I think. I think it benefits Heritage far too much to have him gone. I think that he could have potentially ran as a president. I wouldn't vote for him. I think he was racist and everything else, but like, he broke lock and step about Israel, and he broke lock and step about Epstein files. He broke step on those two things, which would make him a problem. The 70s and 80s and 90s was different time when being sexy was applauded. So, yeah, I don't know quite what you mean, because I think it's still applauded if you're an adult, but if you are not an adult, that should not be in the vernacular. So, but anyway. Oh, another thing. One more thing to rant about when we're talking about these creeps. Why are Republicans in all these red states trying to move the age of consent to 14? They're also saying we ought to try 14-year-olds as an adult, which I'm completely against, because your brain is not developed. We know this through science, yet your brain is not developed till 25. And so they want to try 14-year-olds who've done some horrendous crime, could be like a school shooting or whatever, and try them as adults. And then also attached to that is consent is moved to 14. Riddle me this. What do you call an adult that wants the age of consent to be 14 years old? I would call them a pedophile. And with that, I leave you. So I am going to go play some Dune and some video games and enjoy my day. I am voting blue, and I'm voting to punch Texas in the gut with... they're going to gerrymander. We'll gerrymander back and see how they like it. I'm hoping that it succeeds and works. And find peaceful resistance and encourage each other and look out for each other. There are people that are under great mental and emotional pressure right now, because they are in the people groups that feel like they're in danger. And so definitely reach out to your people that you know that are in more, that might need more support right now. So stay safe, everybody, and you guys have a great Sunday afternoon. I'm just going to figure out how to kill this stream. Is there any off button? I guess if I hit the X, it'll go away. So